Think your argument against the papacy breaks Catholicism? Let's see how strong it really is. Click the subscribe button and watch this episode of The Catholic Steelman. Welcome, everybody, to The Catholic Steelman. My name is Nick, and today I want to talk a little bit about Clement's epistle to the Corinthians in the first century. Now, before we even touch on this argument that Protestants have brought to the table in regards to their apprehension to believing the argument for the papacy, I want to provide some context of this particular letter. So, in the year 96 AD, the church in Corinth is in a crisis of sorts. Several of the presbyters have been forcibly removed from their office, not really for anything like heresy, not really for like immorality reasons, but because of an internal rebellion that's going on. Now, here's the key detail. Corinth does not ask Rome for help, yet Rome intervenes anyway. So, this is an important distinction to make here. Now, the letter responding to this crisis is traditionally attributed to Clement of Rome, and a leading presbyter of the Roman Church at the time. He's writing in the name of that church, while at least one apostle, John, is still alive. So I kind of wanted to bring that up, right? Because it's important for us to understand that John is still alive here and that the church does not seek guidance from perhaps the most reputable and closest companion of Christ. Now, this is where Protestants immediately raise an objection, and it's really not a bad one. It makes a lot of sense and it bears repeating here and it definitely needs to be addressed. So Protestants will say Clement is not a pope in the latter sense. He never claims universal jurisdiction. He never appeals to patrine office. He writes as the Church of Rome, not the Church of Rome over Corinth. And strong language alone doesn't equal supremacy. So, in other words, Catholics are reading way too much into this. They're putting later papal theology back into an early pastoral letter. Now, one thing I want to bring to the table first, because in AD 96, there is no canon law code. There's no formal papal titles. There's no fully developed ecclesiology. So the real question is not, does Clement sound like a medieval pope? The real question has to be, what would binding authority look like before it's formally defined? That's the question we should be answering here. Clement doesn't write words of encouragement here. He's quite literally intervening. Rome steps into another local church's internal governance. And let's listen carefully to how Clement speaks in his letter. Clement says, "If any disobey the things spoken by him through us, let them know that they will involve themselves in no small danger." He does not ask, he does not suggest, he warns. And Clement speaks in the name of God, and he expects obedience here. Now, this is not advisory language. This is not influence. Disobedience only exists where authority exists. Now, let's take a look at how this letter is received by the Corinthians. First, it's preserved. It's publicly read in Corinth for generations after AD 96. It is treated not as optional advice. It's more along the lines of authoritative correction. No recorded protests, no competing counter letters, no appeal to another apostle. And again, we know John is alive. At least most traditions claim he is alive at this point. Now, to be clear, this argument does not assume Corinth tried to contact John. It does not assume John ignored the situation. It does not claim Clement believed he got outranked by an apostle. The point is kind of narrower than this. Clement intervenes decisively without appealing to any apostle, and his intervention is accepted. Rome is not acting because apostolic authority is gone, it's acting alongside of it. Now, Protestants might claim that Clement never claims papal authority. He never invokes the office. He writes collegiately, not kind of as a monarch. And Paul uses strong language himself, kind of like how he does in Galatians. So this looks like more moral exhortation than it does actual jurisdiction here. Okay. Now, this sounds compelling, and it's a good kind of rebuttal from the Protestant position. But here's the problem as I see it. Paul speaks as an apostle. Clement is not an apostle. So if Clement can command obedience beyond Rome, and he's being obeyed, which we know, then some recognized authority already exists in place here. it must be the Roman Church itself, because as I said, he is not an apostle. His position has to have some merit here. I'd like to close with this, if I may. If this is not binding authority, then binding authority has no observable historical footprint in the ancient world at all, which I just don't think is the truth. Now, either Clement exercised recognized authority beyond persuasion, or the early church treated Roman intervention as binding with no authority whatsoever. And for me, only one explanation fits the historical pattern. And that truth, my friends, is stronger than steel. Thanks for watching the video. Please subscribe and like to the Catholic Steelman. God bless.
Ecce in tenebris luce,